All right. Let's call this work session to order for Thursday, January 29th, 2025. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the transfer of development rights with our facilitator, Nicholas Bratton. Nicholas, are you there?
Yes, good evening. I'm here.
Yes, I can hear you just fine. So with that, I guess we're ready to start.
Great, thanks. I have
Yeah,
a few slides I'd like to
can
share.
I
Maybe
say
I'll,
something?
Jose or Oliver might
Yeah,
have a
uh,
few things to say
yeah,
first.
good evening, Planning Commission Chair and members of the Planning Commission. I wanted to just make a few quick remarks before Nick begins his presentation. Following your last joint hearing with the council, the Planning Commission voted to have a work session on TDR. And the purpose of that was to help the Planning Commission understand what is transfer of development right, how does it work. So following that, I reached out to Mr. Nick Bratton. Nick is the manager of transfer of development right in King County. I also reached out to David Toyer. David has a consulting firm known as Toyer Strategic Advisors, Inc., based in Everett. I believe you received his thoughts on TDR. I just want to make a very quick remark. We also, in the package for this work session, we included Forterra, where Nick used to work, a sample of scope of work from 2018. We also included, as part of this work session for your review, Department of Commerce Transfer of Development Right Guidebook, a resource guidebook designating TDR programs in the state of Washington. So that was in a very short time frame, reaching out to experts to help you understand how TDR work. I am very pleased to have Nick Bratton here with us tonight. Mr. David Toyer said he would not be able to attend, but he provided you his thoughts. So, like I said, in a very short period of time, we have, when I say week, my staff in the planning department, we have worked with Nick before, so he's kind enough to join us. Hopefully he might join us in the future, but I will turn it over to Nick. After his presentations, I'm sure you have questions for him. We did prepare a presentation, but I don't think it's necessary. Let's hear from Nick Bratton. So with that, Nick, take it away. You can again introduce yourself. Thank you for joining us.
Dr. Orgiaco, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the introduction. As you mentioned, I'm Nick Bratton. I manage the King County Transfer of Development Rights Program. And prior to that, I worked as the Senior Director of Policy for a regional sustainability organization. So I have about 18 years of experience in designing and managing transfer of development rights programs in Western Washington. So hopefully some of that experience can be helpful in shaping the thinking in Clark County about how this tool may apply. For logistics, would you like to advance the slides, or do you want me to share my screen? What would work best for you? All right.
I can go ahead and advance the slides.
Great. Thanks. Let's kick it off then. So my handful of slides here, an overview, is really to show the experience of how this program has worked in King County. I also want to cover some of the keys to success in what it takes for a TDR program to work based on my experience in design and implementation of programs, and bring the perspective of King County, and also to discuss how this can relate more broadly to other communities around the region. So for our program in particular, the emphasis is to conserve open space. Our comprehensive plan policies and our land use code prioritize the conservation of farms, forests, and rural and urban open space. And these are in support of our countywide land conservation initiative, which is a vision and action plan to protect essentially the last 60,000 acres of unprotected private land in the county within the next 20 years. So we have this policy and initiative vision that really guides our work collectively at the county to achieve these conservation goals. And the role of TDR in supporting this outcome is quite important because we realized in establishing our conservation and land use goals that the amount of public funding that's available to pay for conservation is limited and insufficient to achieve the goals that we have set for ourselves. Therefore, it's essential that in order to reach these conservation and land use objectives, we need to draw on more creative approaches, which for us includes the private market to help finance conservation and to help incentivize growth in places where we want it. So we have protection of open space as one of our primary goals. In conjunction with that, we want to encourage new growth within our existing urban footprint and away from rural lands and open spaces where it's more vulnerable to wildfire and certainly, as we saw recently, to flooding risk. So there are some very impactful, meaningful kind of human element and environmental and economic reasons for why we want to encourage growth in our urban areas. And then this program, as most TDR programs are, they're voluntary, they're incentive-based, they're market-driven, they respect private property rights. So if landowners want to participate in them, it's available. And if they don't, that's fine too. So that's sort of the basic premise of our program. Jose will move on, please. So this cartoon gives a nice, simple visual graphic of how transfer of development rights operates in principle. This land on the left might be a farm, might be rural land, might be forest, open space. But this is in general the type of property where we don't want to encourage growth. We call these sending areas because these are the properties from which development rights originate and are sent. So you can see there are these three potential homes that could be built on this property. And that is the property right of the landowner to develop should they wish. Alternatively, if they don't want to develop and they want to sell that development potential, they can separate from the property in the form of a TDR credit. And that credit can then be purchased by a developer in an urban area who may then use that credit to build higher intensity. That might be taller building height, that might be more units. That development right can translate to a number of different incentives that really depend on what the market has demand for. So in return for that, the developer then pays the landowner. So the landowner receives a financial consideration for the value of removing the development rights from their property. And that conservation is then achieved through a conservation easement, so it's permanent. And the landowner realizes financial gain for having sold that property right. The landowner still owns the property, can still farm, can still harvest timber, still controls all the other rights to the land. The only thing they've given up is the right to build more homes. So it's pretty flexible, and as we'll see in subsequent slides, it can be used at a variety of different scales, but that's the basic premise is voluntary transactions through which landowners sell the right to build, and that density then goes in places where we've decided we want it. All right, next slide, please. Right, so why would local governments choose to use this tool? From the county's perspective, it's really important to us because we get market-based conservation. Privately owned open space and resource lands are being conserved without us paying for it. So there's really a pretty compelling financial argument from that perspective. And secondly, it supports growth goals as that development potential is moving from resource lands and rural areas into our urban growth area and into cities within our county. What's maybe a little less obvious, but is also a really large benefit to King County, is the reduced cost of rural services. When you have a large rural population that is low density and dispersed, it becomes quite expensive to build and maintain roads, provide emergency services and other infrastructure and waste collection and things of that nature. So if most growth goes into our existing urban areas, much more efficient to provide infrastructure and services to those, and less growth in our rural areas means the county is now paying less to provide that infrastructure and services. For cities, at least in the King County and Central Puget Sound model, TDR can be used in a way that creates infrastructure funding for cities who use this tool. King County and other counties in the Central Puget Sound use a kind of a revenue sharing model. I can talk a little bit more about that, but essentially cities get money through the private market, and this revenue can help pay for parks, stormwater, transportation, streetscaping, street trees, a lot of flexible uses. Likewise, cities have growth goals and growth targets under the Comprehensive Plans and Growth Management Act. So steering more growth into designated areas where they want it helps them to achieve their growth goals. And then finally, we end up with more resilient communities. As I mentioned earlier, if we're not seeing more growth in urban and rural areas, that reduces exposure to floods, sea level rise, wildfire risk, things of that nature. So moving growth away from places where it's exposed to those things is beneficial to everybody. Next slide. This map is a little busy, but I just wanted to highlight where and how TDR is being used in King County. We have the overall boundary outline there, and everything that's in white, that is what we call our siting areas. These are our rural and resource zones. That's the part of the county from which landowners can sell their development rights. Everything that is in kind of the red color, those are cities with which we have partnerships, and they have agreed to accept development rights from unincorporated King County. And then these pink areas are areas within our unincorporated urban zones that can also achieve additional density through TDR. So I just wanted to give a little layout here of what those cities are, where they are, and how this relationship works. We'll get into that in a little bit more, but this kind of sets the table for that. Next slide, please. All right, another busy map. This shows where development rights have moved in King County over the 25-year lifespan of the program, and really the magnitude to which we've used it. In the lifespan of the program, we've protected more than 200 different properties, and those have ranged in size from a fraction of an acre to about 90,000 acres, which is that large forested area you see in the northeast corner of the county. That's the Snoqualmie Forest. So in total, we've protected over 148,000 acres, and most of that growth potential that's been moved out of our rural and resource lands has gone into cities. But as you can see in the map, quite a bit of that, these little orange dots, those also reflect development right use in urban areas. So the bulk of it's been in Seattle, but we've also seen quite a bit in the unincorporated urban area. And then there are 140 different projects that have used TDR in that 25-year period countywide. And the last bullet point here I really want to highlight, the total market value of TDR used in King County, $60 million. That's $60 million in private funding that's come into the program that we have not had to spend of taxpayer dollars to achieve 148,000 acres of conservation. So that's something we take pride in, and we also recognize the need to continue to build on that. Next slide, please. All right, ingredients for success. What are the things that programs need in order to work effectively? There are probably more, but in my experience, these are the elements that all need to be in place, and I'll explain how they work together. Supply is obvious. In a private market, any kind of market-based system, you need a supply of goods, and in this case, that means landowners who are willing to enroll in the program and who want to conserve their property and receive value for that. Absent that, you wouldn't have land to protect. On the other side of the equation, you need demand. And in TDR world, that looks like where the need for growth exceeds the capacity that you have. So you're probably all familiar with incentive zoning as a means to achieve public benefit through the private market. TDR works exactly the same way. You might have a 3-story by right building height limit and award additional building height, maybe up to 5 stories through incentive zoning that might be achieved through using TDR. That's the type of model that is commonly used in this situation. The economics of it need to work for all parties involved. If landowners don't feel like they are going to receive sufficient value for giving up their development rights, then they won't participate. Likewise, developers have to, like, their projects need to be profitable in order to justify using this. So this needs to be financially beneficial on both sides of the equation for landowners to participate and for developers to use the tool. The economics piece is critical. This is one of the probably the second most important piece on this list, and that relationship of what development rights are worth and what the developers get for them, that would be part of the feasibility study market analysis that would be done by private consultants in the design phase. Simplicity, this is also essential. The program has to be easy for people to use. If developers look at the code and they don't understand the program and they think it's going to be too much of a headache, that won't be very inviting for them. Likewise, the process to enroll and certify and sell your development rights for landowners needs to be easy. This has been something that we've learned through experience in King County, that the role of the public agency can help support and facilitate a marketplace and effectively be that invisible hand of helping to connect buyers and sellers and to explain the program and to do some of the legwork to make it easier for developers to use and for landowners to enroll. Policy alignment is essential. This is where the kind of the role of policymakers really shines. You need to offer the right incentives. If developers want reductions in parking requirements, then they're not going to buy TDR if it gets them, additional building height, and they don't want that. So whatever the incentives are that are being offered need to align with what there is demand for in the market, and the zoning needs to support that as well. So that's part of the role of what the public agency can do in helping to establish that ingredient for success. Finally, this is maybe the most important and also the most difficult to achieve. You need the political will. Elected officials must be committed to supporting the program and establishing policy and land use regulations that create an environment in which this market-based tool can work. And TDR often is hard to get right the first time. I think of it as a living program. King County revises its program on an annual basis, so we're continually looking for ways to make it work better. And that is something that our elected officials have been responsive to and have been supportive of. So that's for starters here. Having these pieces in place will go a long way to make the program work. Next slide, please. All right, setting TDR partnerships. We looked at these on the map earlier, and I wanted to highlight these in the King County context because they've been instrumental in the success of the program. And the long-term vision for what I see continued success in King County is expanding this list and partnering with more cities. In our regional growth strategy, the long-term vision is to direct most of the growth into cities. And in King County, there aren't a lot of remaining large-scale development opportunities in the unincorporated urban area. So to continue to cultivate demand in use of the tool long-term, we're going to need to continue to partner with cities. And as you can see from this list, there's quite the range. You know, Seattle is nearly 800,000 people. Normandy Park is a fraction of that, but this program is used in all of these places. So the way that we kind of cultivate this network, King County likes to use an interlocal agreement as the vehicle for establishing these relationships, and then that way the roles and responsibilities of each local government are clear. And then we also offer a revenue sharing approach in that cities on this list, if developers buy from the King County TDR Bank, we then return a portion of that sales revenue directly to the city, and they can use that for parks, for affordable housing, for stormwater, bridges, transit, any infrastructure or housing need. It's pretty flexible. So there's really a financial incentive for cities to use this tool in King County, and there's a regional version of this that extends to Pierce and Snohomish as well. So we recognize that as being instrumental in helping to make for successful partnerships. So long term, we'd like to bring more cities onto this list, and that's part of what I do. Next slide, please. All right, I'll give a couple quick examples of kind of the bookends of how TDR can be used. In Seattle, it can be used at a really large scale. We have, high rises and skyscrapers that, can gain a lot of development bonus through using this tool. This is the biggest example in Washington State, Rainier Square Tower in downtown Seattle. The developer added 12 stories of building height using TDR. And as a result of that, that one project conserved 14,000 acres of forest land and 2 farms. So big outcome on the development side, big outcome on the conservation side. And we also recognize that this is not the model that most cities in the region or in the state will follow. But I just wanted to highlight this as, one possible end of how the market can work. Next slide, please. So also in King County, really small projects use the tool quite a bit. So this is an unincorporated King County. We have this, short plat subdivision. The developer added 8 lots to this project by purchasing 4 development rights. And the conservation outcome was the permanent protection of a Girl Scout camp along the Tolt River. So great community benefit there. We were able to add 8 more homes on a parcel that otherwise would have been developed at a lower density. And the tool worked at this scale as well. So wanted to highlight these as 2 different examples of really the bookends of how the tool can be used, and anything in between, from garden style apartments to podium construction to even mid-rise cross laminated timber construction, if that ever becomes an opportunity. So let's move along to the next slide, please. All right, main points. TDR can work anywhere as long as you have growth. The policy and regulation can be crafted to harness the economic engine of that growth in using TDR. And in our experience, partnerships between counties and cities can really accelerate the use of the tool and bring it up to scale. And to keep the program working, we've been very proactive in forming and kind of maintaining an environment in which those ingredients for our success can continue to be present. So it does take a little active care and feeding, but the results have certainly gone well for King County. So I think that's it for my comments in this presentation. And I'll stop there and would be happy to answer any questions, unless Oliver or Jose, you have anything you'd like to add first.
No, I don't. Thank you, Nick.
Questions from commissioners? Jack?
Thanks so much for your presentation. It's a wealth of knowledge there. This is Commissioner Haroon. Question, we are looking at kind of a different type of TDR program in which we'll be de-designating current ag land and then finding additional ag land and purchasing, basically putting a conservation over that to permanently lock that in. Where yours, King County, seems to be more of like an incentive-based revenue structure of like, hey, the city gets a little, their palms greased a little bit, and then it helps with stuff, and then the farmer gets something, and then the builder gets something. Do you guys have any examples of where you're just preserving ag land within King County, but that you needed to bring into like your urban, you were taking like resource land into your urban growth area and then using a TDR in that capacity?
We do have examples of that. We don't use our TDR program for that purpose. But King County has a program called a 4-to-1, which pretty much works the way does what it says on the tin. If you want to kind of remove 1 acre of land from a resource or rural designation and bring it into the city or an urban growth area, you can do that, but you also have to conserve 4 acres for every 1 acre you do that. So this has been used, I think, in the Issaquah area, maybe a couple of other places on the kind of eastern side of the urban rural growth boundary in King County. Nothing too recently, but I think we have a track record of using this approach. TDR wasn't the tool we used, but we did create a different mechanism to achieve that similar goal.
And then when the TDR credits, is that something that you're purchasing from the municipality, or the developer goes out and hunts down those rights, or is it like a combination of there's a fee that you have to pay to King County and you have to go hunt down development rights?
We offer a couple options in our program. One is purely private market. So if a developer, we'll use that subdivision example, that developer wanted to add 8 units to its project, it would go out onto the private market and look for a landowner that had 4 development rights to sell. One of the services we offer to help facilitate the market is an online TDR exchange, which you can think of as Craigslist for TDR, where buyers and sellers can list what they have available and who wants what. That helps to connect people. Buyers and sellers can find each other. They'll complete the transaction in the private market. King County has no involvement, and they can negotiate their price and get what they need for their project and conserve their land. In some cases, developers don't want to do that. So we also have the King County TDR Bank, in which the county has purchased the development rights up front, and then we hold those in an inventory that developers can then buy from us. So that skyscraper was a great example of that. If that developer had gone to the private market to get 200 development rights, he would have had to piece together lots of transactions. It would have taken time, uncertainty, transaction costs, headache. It was much easier for that developer just to come to King County and write 1 check and be done with it. So our bank can operate with an efficiency at that larger scale, but we also support and promote activity in the private market as well. So that really covers the basis in terms of all the different permutations that we've seen. So yeah, it can be done easily in both directions.
Awesome. Thank you. Great information.
Yeah, happy to help.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. That was very helpful, Nick. Appreciate your time, and we appreciate all you put into it. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. And if you have future questions, please share them with staff, and they can forward them to me. I'd be happy to stay plugged in.
Okay, great. Thanks. Have a good evening.
Thank
Any other comments from the Planning Commission regarding this? Marian? Not at this time. Okay, with that said, I think that was the only thing on our work session today. We will be back here at 6:30 for our hearing on our selection of the preferred alternative table. Good. All right. Adjourn it.